Beautiful. There we go.
All right.
And so you were saying these are like very, here we are with Cabell Coursey, good buddy of mine from New Zealand days. We studied viticulture enology in New Zealand. Cabell went on to make some wine. I'm trying to sell wine over here. So we're tasting today for the wine club two bottles of wine from Cabell, one Sonoma, one Napa, and I thought it'd be fun to taste them side by side just to get a little bit of feedback on the differences and also what you feel are different about the sites and about the styles of wine, you know?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'll go into both of them real quick. So quickly, the Napa wine, the Napa Valley Cabernet was actually roughly about 98% Cabernet. There's about 2% of it is interplanted Petit Verdot. We're not really sure how much, if it's 2%, 3%. I'm not really sure because I've never walked all the vineyards to count how many vines, but it's actually we farm 3 vineyards in Napa, in the southern part of Napa in Coombsville, which is a very cool, close to the bay site. We farm a site in Howell Mountain, on the very top of Howell Mountain. And then we also have a site in Oakville. So
can I ask you what your favorite site is? Do you have one favorite over the other, or
well, it depends on the year. Truthfully, the Oakville one's like the high rent district, because we're like stuck. So we're on one border it's Harlan, on the other border it's a very old vineyard called Martha's Vineyard, on the other border it's Farniente, and so we just have this little 2.5 acres, but it's in the like super high rent district of Oakville. But it's actually it's the nice thing about that one is it's always consistently really good. It's always really good. Whereas the Howell Mountain and the Coombsville, usually on any given year, my favorite's either the Howell Mountain or the Coombsville, but my second's always the Oakville. And so on the warmer years, Coombsville just dominates. And on the cooler years, Oakville is just dominant. And we didn't know this was a problem, but Oakville kind of hangs out there. So it's a little bit susceptible to smoke. So we don't make it every year. It doesn't make it into so in 17, and then in 20, there's no Howell Mountain. Coombsville is just like this consistently ripening. It's different. It's like dark fruit, bright fruit, plum, and blackberry, black currant. And then the Oakville is just like classy Napa Cabernet, like fine tannins, like everything you want, and like classic Napa Cabernet. It's like.
Have you ever thought about like bottling them individually, or you just?
I do bottle them individually now, but I didn't. I worked with them. So we first started working with those vineyards in 2016. So in 2019, I bottled them individually for the first time, mainly because it took me just a few years before I was happy with how I was making them, and they fit better into a blend. So once I figured out like, okay, this is what this site is, and I figured out how to like make it, I was like, this is ready. So there's really small amounts of those two vineyard, the Coombsville, Howell Mountain, and Oakville. We bottle we're talking 50 case lots, so tiny stuff.
How many cases do you do of Napa Valley Cab a year?
About 700.
Okay, cool. So
it's not a very big. It's generally not a very big thing. So, that what makes us, because we farm everything ourselves, so we don't use any sort of contractor. Everything's done by me. So I walk the vineyards. Yeah. I have a crew of 8 guys, and we do everything ourselves.
I'm assuming you're just driving around most of the year, back and forth all around. Oh, yeah. It's nonstop, huh?
Let me make it clear. I'm not the one actually doing the work.
Yeah.
I'm the one walking the rows with my guys, and talking to them about how we're going to do it this year. And we really start with a farm plan. This is how we're going to do it this year. And then as the weather changes, we throw the farm plan out the window and change how we're doing it. But
and you were just saying this year's probably totally out the window with the crazy droughts.
We're in crazy drought.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, I'm really high on wine quality this year because of the drought, we're going to have a lower crop. And so it's going to be a real concentrated year. And then, what we need for municipal water for your tap and what we need for grapevines is a totally different thing. You don't need much rain to make great wine. You actually, if you just have a little bit of water, you kind of take control of the vineyard through irrigation. So it's going to be a great wine year. It's, I'm going to have to take some really short showers this year, but
kids can't take a bath, man.
yeah. But from wine quality, I'm really excited about it. But it's the double-edged sword, as they say.
I know a lot of people here will probably have questions for you about last year and how that played out with the fires and everything for you. Was that just a write-off for you? Have you thrown out a lot?
It was an insurance claim. We're not making a single red wine in 2020. Wow. We brought in a bunch of grapes. Well, I brought in a bunch of grapes to trial stuff. So normally we sell majority of our fruit, and I just we're really heavily insured. Like we kind of pay a little bit more for insurance than most people, but it really worked out for us this past year, because we got full contracted price on all our grapes. So I actually didn't want, a lot of people took in grapes and they're like, well, if it's smoke tainted, we won't pay you. But if it isn't smoke tainted, if it's not smoke tainted, we'll make it. I just said, all right, don't pick. I'm going to claim my insurance this year. I don't want to wait until June to figure out if you're going to use it or not before I get paid or I can make a claim. I wanted to be the first person to claim my insurance. I wanted to be the first guy to claim insurance and get the money before the mass of California is doing it.
We probably insured that in Bermuda somewhere.
I'm sure there was reinsured. It was probably reinsured in Bermuda somewhere. It's actually subsidized by the U.S. government. So the one time I really get into subsidies is when I'm getting a payout.
Totally. No other time matters.
Yeah. But so we made, out of every vineyard I took in 3 tons, and we did 3 separate 1-ton lots of every vineyard I work with, and that was just as a what can we learn? Don't waste a good crisis. What can we learn about smoke tanks? So, and I'll be honest, I'm more confused now than I was before we harvested. I think the answer to smoke taint at this point is have good insurance.
Yeah.
And don't
pick.
It's
going to get more and more expensive, isn't it? If everybody's, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you pay on an average of like your claim. So, but because of the subsidy of the U.S. government on crop insurance, I think it's the only insurance. I think I got more money this past year than I'll pay out in insurance costs over the next 50 years. So it's like the only insurance that actually has a positive net payout because of the U.S. subsidy on the Farm Bill subsidy. So I'm gonna get insurance, and the people who didn't have insurance, they
struggling, huh?
Oh, I would think, I mean, sometimes if you're putting in $1 million into farming a vineyard and you get 0 back, like
that could put you under.
There's a lot of vineyards that are for sale, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about your home vineyard in Bennett Valley and the 2016. We also put in a wine club, the Coursey Graves 2016. So, your home vineyard. How would you compare the 2 wines? I mean, let's take it way out and just say Sonoma. One's Merlot.
Well, let me tell you. I mean, tell you why I'm there. Where I'm at. Like the picture behind me is at the vineyard. Why we're here is because, I love Napa Valley and I love making wine from Napa Valley, but climate change is changing everything. What we learned is what was thought to be too cool for Cabernet is not too cool anymore. It's warm enough. We can ripen Cabernet. And I'm a firm believer in the best grapes come from the coolest site able to ripen the varietal. So if you just have enough heat to ripen a varietal, that's always going to be the best expression of grapes. And so we found this property in this Bennett Mountain in Sonoma on the kind of western edge of the Mayacamba range. So the Mayacamba range of mountains separates Napa and Sonoma. And we're on the western edge of that. And we, on a clear day, you can see the ocean. We're 12 miles away, but we get impacted by the ocean. It's always cooler. I remember this past summer, it was 112 in St. Helena. And I drove down to our coolest Napa vineyard in Coombsville, and it was 98. And then I drove over to our vineyard, and it was 85. And that's when like, you got a special spot, the perfect weather for ripening. And so we have all Bordeaux varietals on our estate here. And with the Bennett Mountain, our goal is just to make the best wine from the property. It's not a Cabernet specific. It's like, okay, this is the best wines. What kind of blend can we make? We have 5 Bordeaux varietals and Syrah on the property. And I'm open to putting Syrah on the blend. It just hasn't worked out. It just hasn't been the best thing. So I look at it as like, we have a site on this mountain that's goes from 1,500 feet in elevation down to 800 feet. And depending on the year, where the quality is based on how warm or cool the elevation is, because there's lots of variation this close to the coast. The stuff at the bottom gets fog and might be 50 degrees, while the stuff at the top might be 85 at the same exact time of day. And so we have a lot of kind of play with how it works out. We pick based on the ripening characteristics of the whole season, not just on what potential alcohol a specific spot might be. Like if this block we might pick a thing with Cabernet of a potential alcohol of 12%, and the stuff above it might have 15.5%. We're going to end up blending that together probably somehow, but we pick on ripening characteristics of the overall vineyard instead of just like, okay, this is what the chemistry won't want, or the potential alcohol we want. We don't do that.
Is there something like specific about your site that you love the most? Is it that variation, I guess?
Is that variation? And there's also, I like that I have kind of these volcanic Napa soils. We have the same soil as like this mountain sites in Napa, but we have a cool marine influence. That's what I like about it. It just doesn't exist in Napa, where we have high mountains, volcanic soils. I say that like, I always pick on them because they're my friends, but we're the Harlan of Sonoma County. Like, what's the difference? The difference is we're 15 degrees cooler. Yeah. And they have a lot more money. That's the big difference too.
So I'm looking at your wine right now, the Bennett Valley, and it's at 14.5%, which is, I guess in Napa or California terms is.
I have a confession to make.
It's not, is it?
I don't change my labels every year. Because that cost me more money. So I just printed out the same thing. I just changed the year.
Oh, so tell us what the 16 is then. Where is it?
So the 16 is probably like 14.1 really. Okay. But so the way that these laws work in United States. So now it used to be that anything above 14 had to be 14 plus anything below 14. Now you have 2.5% gradient on your alcohol. So if I put 14.5, it can be as low as 12 or as high as 17. I would never make, I haven't made, since I've been on my own, I haven't made a wine with an alcohol over 14.8 yet, but I just kind of put that on there because it's easy.
Yeah, it works. It fits in the middle, I guess. What is your favorite thing about the 16 wine? What is the influence of the Merlot compared to the Cabernet on that? And
yeah, so it's the Merlot just brings a velvety texture and fruitiness. The Cabernet brings like ageability, and there's like a minerality to Cabernet at our site. That cooler site, there's just like minerality and focus on it. It's more focused on the palate, while Merlot is more plush. And so when you put them together, you get a complete wine, and they really do, at our site, they need each other. You can't do these things where you're in like 3% Merlot, 4% Merlot. That won't affect anything. It needs to be closer to 50, 60% of each.
Yes.
40 to 60% of each to really, and that makes the complete wine. And whether we've kind of found that this wine for most every year, it's really 2 sections of the vineyard, the Merlot section and the Merlot is a little bit lower in a cooler spot on the hill. And the Cabernet is a little hot, but it's also our older vines. They're just producing, they're planted in 97. So they're 24 years old now, they're getting some vine age, and that's just, they're just prime right now. They're just really producing great wines at this moment. And so that, and we're excited about our other varietals, but they're much younger vines, and they're just not as good. Oh, they're going to be great. Like they're going to outperform the other ones. It just takes time.
Yeah.
It takes 10 years before you really see the quality start jumping. But, so I expect that we're going to have Malbec coming in soon that was going to make this blend. I know Petit Verdot is going to make the blend. Like, we almost put it in. It would have made it in 2020, I think. But specifically, what I like about 16 is there's concentration, but there's not too much alcohol, and there's just beautiful purity and tannin. So it's like there's no astringent tannin. Like, the tannin quality is really high. The ageability, these wines are going to age for a long time. Like, I'll put them up against any Bordeaux any day. Like, I would love to have that tasting of throw the first growth Bordeaux, like right bank Bordeaux, because more Merlot, like right bank Saint Emilions and stuff.
Yeah.
Throw those in a blind tasting and see where I land, because I might not be the first, but I promise you I'm going to be in the top 15% or something.
I'll tell you for sure, your wines just are a bit more concentrated. Like, I mean, of course there's tiers on the right bank, but yours are just they're California without being totally California, which is what I like. Well, they had some restraint to them, some freshness, some balance. They're not over the top, but they're very drinkable. Like we were saying earlier.
And that's, we were talking about this earlier, is I try to make wines that are pleasurable to drink, what the French call vin de pleasure, like something that's like, I don't make wines that you have to think about why they're made. I like some of those wines. I like to taste those wines and think about why does it taste like this? When you taste my wines, you're like, oh, that's really good. That's the first thing that comes to go. Like, oh, I'm gonna drink the whole bottle, and like, I always strive to make something which is like the last glass is better than the first glass, where you're like, you finish your thing, you're like, wow, I got to open that up. I got to open up another one of those soon. That's the kind of one.
I'm gonna have to order some more wine from you, because we're pretty much out of stock on both of these. So everybody in the wine club will get to try, give us some feedback on them. And if you have 16s left, you're probably getting a little bit low on those anyway at this stage, huh?
Yeah, we'll hold some back for you. No problem.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for your time today, Cabell.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. I think everybody will appreciate hearing about the wines rather than me just typing.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.